Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We provide fan-oriented and analytic discussions on a variety of animated shows, movies, and anime, including Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, Star Wars Rebels, Moonbeam City, and RWBY. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'll be taking you solo through the latest episode of RWBY, New Challengers, which is Chapter 2 and Volume 3 of RWBY. Normally I'll be joined by Delaney or Britt for these RWBY recaps, but today I'll be taking you solo through this one. We'll be covering RWBY every Sunday, probably, afternoonish, with the episodes for Volume 3 coming out publicly on Sunday mornings at 11 Eastern. So, today, let me first say that you can find out everything about this podcast at overlyanimated.com and more information at the end. But let me get right into New Challengers, the latest episode of RWBY. Me and Delaney kind of gave our initial thoughts on last week was our first RWBY podcast. We gave our initial thoughts and talked about Chapter 1, which we both very much enjoyed, and I think New Challengers is a clear step down from the premiere. I think there's kind of two ways to take this episode here with Chapter 2. Kind of an optimistic approach or like a realistic approach, I would say. The optimistic approach, which I kind of want to take here, because I really am excited by RWBY right now. Like, it's the show I'm most into out of any show I'm watching. I'm kind of just constantly listening to the Volume 1 and 2 soundtrack. I'm just like, I'm reading like forum posts and Tumblr and stuff like that about the show, and I'm very into it. So like, I want to be optimistic. That being said, this episode was not very good. This episode featured two fight sequences, which were basically the entire episode, and like I mean, there wasn't much choice to go to fights sequences right away in this chapter. Normally, the structure has been start off the season with a bang and then kind of quiet down a little bit and do some exposition for the season. And here we are continuing like with action pieces. And that's because of the structure of the season, probably. I mean, we haven't seen the entire season yet, but we have the tournament here and we need to, I guess, keep going with tournament matches. However, in an ideal world, we wouldn't be doing this, because heading into the season, the big question mark is how are the fights and action pieces going to be, without Monty? And these were from my understanding of production, are the things that were probably most affected by Monty's influence. Whereas, the script writing, I feel like Carrie and Miles were doing mostly on their own anyway at this point in like Volume 2. But now we're getting, fights without Monty, and these two were not very good. So this is not a great sign for the season. Also, we had the script wasn't incredibly strong either. It feels bad destroying the episode like that. I mean, I'm not saying it was terrible. It was fine, and I enjoyed it. Like, let's be clear, I did enjoy this episode. But I think the reality is that it wasn't very good. I've seen public opinion on it, and I think it agrees with me on this. And it feels bad because I know production on the show is very impressive, and they kind of try their hardest without an official studio influence with the show. And I know everyone involved has had to step up and change roles, and it's a lot, and I really sympathize with that. So that's kind of why I would want to approach this from an optimistic viewpoint, and I still do think Volume 3 could be very good. But that being said, another point of view on this is that maybe it's not that the fights are going to be worse now, it's that these 4-on-4 fights are never going to be could never be exceptional. Maybe these are just harder to pull off, these structured tournament 4-on-4 fights. I've seen that opinion too, and I think that has some credibility to it. Like, I think that might be a legitimate viewpoint. I'm not sure why we need to spend an entire episode purely on two fights here. Like, think about the structure of this episode, and I think like maybe the flaws of this will become clear. Our four main characters are sitting down watching the events of the episode the entire time, and that's kind of our and the only times we cut to them are their reactions to what they're sitting down and watching. That's not very exciting, and that's not very it's not very well narratively structured because our vantage points into this world are not our main focus point. And, if you view the season as a larger, book as opposed to, one episode by episode, which I think is on this show might be more valid than other shows because, at the very least, a lot of people watch the show on Netflix where they're all just one after another. This single entry being weak isn't as much of a liability. That's kind of always the case. Week episodes don't stand out if you're just watching them all together, but watching the show week to week, like I assume most people are if you're listening to this, it's these week entries stand out. So let me defend my claim that these are not the strongest fight sequences. I think the first one's better than the second one. Let's go through this episode here. Our first fight is between Team Juniper and Team Bronze, apparently BRNZ. Which is from Shade and Vacuole, much like Team Indigo featured in the second fight. So I don't know much about Team Bronze, nor do I think we're supposed to know much about them. Team Indigo I know is definitely new, and I think was designed by some type of fan thing, seeing Team Juniper in action here is kind of cool. We haven't really seen them doing too much recently, going back into the end of Volume 2. We were pretty focused in on Team RWBY at the end, which I think is a good thing. Here, so what are the highlights? So there's one, the big highlight for me of this fight is the highlight of the episode, which is like not the actual fighting. It's when they take a break in the fighting. That to me is the great sequence, which I think some people disagree with and probably thought that was silly. But before that, we have highlights being learning what Nora's semblance is. Last week's podcast, Delaney and I were kind of expressed our unclarity. That's not a weird way to phrase it, but on semblances. I think the show has not delved into the actual specifics behind semblances as much as it could have. And I also think that it is becoming clearer to me that the show does not want this to be like a big mythological plot point. Or rephrasing that, a big plot point within the show's mythology. It's more meant to just be something cool for each character that kind of adds to character development, exposition, whatever. So like it's clarifying, and thanks to someone in the YouTube comments on this video, we also post all our podcasts on YouTube, and you can check us out, Overly Animated Podcast. Someone clarified that the rest, I think I expressed that Blake's the only semblance who'd been clearly stated as a semblance on the show, and then they said no. Their Pira talk in Volume 1 with John says the other members of Team RWBY also had them shown, so apologize for that mistake. And Nora, though, we had not seen, and I don't know, I'm thinking back in the series, and Nora, I don't remember any indication that Nora's semblance would be electrical related. Possibly I just missed like hints about this, but apparently her semblance is that she can channel electrical energy straight into her muscles, and then she can use that to do a bunch of things, which one of the commentators, the Professor Dr. Oobleck, excuse me, Mr. Oobleck, says that she can do a bunch of stuff with it. So this is like a cool ability, and I think that's the main thing with semblances. They're just supposed to be cool. I don't think there's a lot of pressure on them to make a lot of sense. Like, how much does this make sense with Nora's character? How much does this make sense, like, biologically? She can channel electrical energy into her muscles. I don't know, whatever. I also don't think Yang's makes any sense, but it's cool. It makes sense in that it's totally a fighting ability, and this is too, so it's fine. No complaints here. I kind of still want semblances to be more of a thing that's, like, actually explained. But I'm fine that it's just, this cool thing that adds to the action pieces in the show. And I guess the other question, if we're thinking of this like a fighting game, is Nora OP? Is that what does the semblance make her OP? Overpowered is what I'm referring to. And I guess not, because what instances are there typically in a fight with electrical energy. That's somewhat of a narrow ability. She had a second usage in this fight for channeling lightning from the top of the mountain. That seems like a very arena specific type use, and also specific to her getting that specific type of terrain. So, this it seems like a narrow, but when it applies, it seems it's very good, and she just basically wins the fight on her own there. So yeah, in terms of how this is placed within the fight, this is I think it kind of drains the energy from the fight. This is the most interesting thing that happened so far. Like, we had some stuff with the sniper on the other team, and we have a common theme throughout this fight of John leading, which I think is really well done. But if you take your time out of the action piece to explain something like this, it does take the wind out of the sails a little bit. Not that this is the biggest flaw with the fight sequences though. So yeah, then we have Team RWBY commenting on this. Go get him, John. Well, he's certainly improved. Yeah, but he ain't got nothing on Pyrrha. That was RWBY, Weiss, and Yang, I think, and in that order. Some very general commentary there. RWBY being sportive. I guess Weiss, I don't know. I hope we're not setting up a Weiss John thing later. I hope we're done with that. And Yang cheering for Pyrrha. That's pretty cool. I don't know how many interactions Yang and Pyrrha have had, but there you go. And Nora clears out the sniper by setting the trees on fire. I like that creative usage of the terrain. That's pretty cool. Okay, so now here's the pause. This is my favorite part of the episode, so let me quote it and then talk about it. This is it, guys. It says John. Let's finish them with team attacks. Ren, Nora, flower power. Flower power, that's your team attack name. Ren brings the flower, Nora brings the power. We get our best Monty's brother line read on how do I bring a flower. That sounded very much like Monty, which was a little bit emotional there. And Nora's not flower like the other usage of the word. Nora's voice actress she's very over the top. I guess that fits the character a lot, but that it specifically seemed prominent here for that line read. No, it's your symbol, which apparently is a thing for Ren. So, okay. So this whole thing is great because it is parodying the ship names, or parodying kind of just using the ship names in the RWBY fandom. And I don't know, I just kind of love this. It's extremely over the top and silly, but I think this show, when the show at all seems smart, it's good. Because at its worst, this episode is super conventional, basic, and unintelligent. So that at its worst. At its best, I think it's this scene, because this scene is kind of it's very self-aware of the community surrounding RWBY, and also just the many romance possibilities within the show that the show actually presents. So I think this seems very self-aware and intelligent of the show. Also, I just think it's very funny. This isn't even the best part though. Then we get John and Pyrrha interacting. So what are we? Pyrrha, sorry, I just want to make sure it's clearly defined. That's the line. That's the lampshadingest line of the entire episode. Sorry, I just want to make sure it's clearly defined. I love Pyrrha's voice actress's line read on this sequence, by the way. I also do not have all the RWBY voice actors and actresses memorized. I apologize. Pyrrha, you and I are Akros. It's that thing where we take our shields, or something like that. Remember? Akros? Yeah, it's our names put together. What, do you not like it? No, it's good. This is great on so many levels. First of all, I think Akros actually is their ship name. And it's our names put together. This is totally, and within the RWBY fandom is the most creative ship names, which is the show totally kind of makes it easy to do because characters are color coded and stuff like that. So it's easy to come up with these great creative ship names. But then you have some which just combine the two names together, which is typically how you make ship names. And Akros, I guess, Arcos, excuse me, is one of them. And I like Pyrrha not being happy with that. Come on, why don't they get a better ship name? That's great. So I really love this entire sequence, and it's just it's a big highlight within kind of a flat rest of the episode. Totally, totally really into this, and I hope they do more stuff like this. I think the show comes off well. I mean, I've seen people complaining about how this was silly, but I am not of that opinion. Well, the next part is a little bit silly, which is there's a team meeting. No, there's a fight going on. This part I think was the silly part, and it's like that was what that was. Nora just hit him with the hammer. If Nora could just do that, why didn't they just do that earlier? I mean, I know that we took a pause out to talk, and that was the point, but if Nora can just ring out all 4 people, I guess we had to get them together. That was the main point of John's leadership, is that they had to get them in the same place. But still, it seems a little illegitimate, I guess. If you want to place a lot of importance on these fights, then when you have them end so kind of sillily, then it seems out of place, I guess. So then Team Juniper wins and is on to the doubles round. Yay. I guess that's what our team villains were anticipating last episode. Although I don't know how they knew they would win over Team Bronze, because they've been studying their abilities the entire time when they've been at the academy. Yes, that I think Delaney and I talked about that last week. Anyway, so there's the first fight. That fight's all right. It's fine. I think that it does a lot of good things. It showcases John's leadership, which is really good, and I think we improved Nora as kind of a character, which is good, and we have this great dialogue sequence in the middle. So. Kind of, for this show, I think it's maybe a below average fight. Like, the show has great action pieces, so I have a high expectation. But in general, I did enjoy that. Okay, so then we have this is the first of 2 scenes with Crow. Uncle Crow, I guess, right? So, we saw, let me get the RWBY wiki down here so I don't mess up names. We saw RWBY's dad in the intro. Apparently going back on missions. We saw Raven at the end of last season. We haven't seen her since. Summer Rose has passed away, and here is Crow, our first. Is this our first? No, I don't know. We might have seen him before. Anyway, kind of he's unimpressed with the whole thing. He's drinking, and then he's unimpressed with the fights that he's seeing, and at the end, he apparently is impressed. That winter Schnee is coming. So that is interesting. Or is it specifically because of winter? Is it because of some circumstances involving her team or her entry? I don't know. Is Winter even fighting? Is Winter a student? I don't know about any of this. It's possible that we've had this information revealed beforehand, but not in this show. I don't think so. Or revealed, like outside of show circumstances. So what do I think of these Crow scenes? They're kind of dumb. I will say that. This is not how I imagined this character when RWBY kind of talks about him a lot, right? And, I don't, it's not that it's like speaks badly upon him and that's why it's bad. It's just kind of uninteresting, and Dylan is only doing one thing. It's like, okay, he is unimpressed. That's the impression I get, and I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel about that. Like, is it supposed to be a positive characterization? Is it supposed to be like an important characterization? Or are we just establishing that Crow is here? Is that the only point of that? So I think these scenes are not great. So next fight, the second fight of the episode. Unlike last week's episode, which kind of had two fight sequences, but had a nice quiet part in the middle, there's really nothing. Only the Crow scene and like kind of, I guess, maybe reactions. I'm not sure. So here, we have some things in the beginning. So we have Team Indigo, also from Shade and Vacuo, versus Team Sun, which is, I didn't know if that's how you pronounce Sun's team name, which was SSSN, which is not very pronounceable. So, okay. So we're already starting off at a bad point here, because Sun and Neptune are not very interesting characters in general. So now, I'm higher on Sun than others. I think Delaney, me and Delaney both took a beaconship.me quiz. I'd taken it many times before, but here I showed it to her because she just got up on the show, and she had Sun as her least favorite character, and I'm like, okay. I personally would never put Neptune above Sun. Sun is, I see my feeling. I typically dislike Sun's character model. He looks like a a blank boy. Like, I'm censoring myself there. And but in actuality, he's like kind of a nice guy. That's, I think, what we've seen so far from the show. And I actually like when he's like actually spoken and what he's been saying. I don't know, I'm a Sun fan, I guess. I had him like in 15 or something, which was very high for because you have all your major characters, and then you have the cool characters who aren't necessarily major characters like Neo, and then whoever's highest among the minor characters are people you actually like. So I do really like Sun. Neptune not so much, especially after this episode. And we meet Scarlet and Sage. I don't know if we'd met them before. We might have seen them. I don't know if we heard their names, but that's what their names are. So we're starting off at a bad point because these aren't major characters already, and then you're introducing a new team who, although admittedly is really cool. I do like a lot of things about Team Indigo, but there's just really no rooting interest here. There's no focal point for the audience. There's nothing super interesting about this fight, and it's way too gimmicky. The entire thing with Neptune being afraid of water is super unsuccessful, in my opinion. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's interesting. I don't think it's sympathetic to Neptune. So basically, I hated it all around. In the beginning of this fight, we had Weiss calling good luck Neptune. So you're starting off on my wrong foot, Neptune, when you have my favorite character cheering for you, and I don't like you two together. So, that's not an actual critical criticism, just a personal opinion. I love Weiss though, and I don't like Weiss like crushing on Neptune. Okay, so here's one thing: is that this episode, I'm gonna get into a larger rant about this, but this episode makes it much clearer about Weiss and Blake's affections than previously was stated. I mean, Weiss is not too much different here than before. She's obviously expressed romantic interest in Neptune before, and here she basically does again, although more overt than otherwise. And then Neptune says "ladies" to the crowd, I guess, or was it Team Indigo? I don't remember. And then Weiss says, "Break a stupid face, Indigo." That's great. I love that. Go Weiss. And Neptune says, "Girls, try to remember hands above the waist." And then Sun says, "Ignore him, he's dumb." So once again, Neptune's the dumb one here. Sun is the good one. So I'd like to make this clear. I'm defending my boy Sun here. So Neptune. Oh my goodness, what could there be more unsympathetic of a characterization possible? Are we supposed? Here's my deal when this happens. A lot of times, content creators are super unaware, male content creators are super unaware that their male characterizations are unsympathetic. Now, if you want to characterize Neptune as silly and, just kind of a dumb frat guy or whatever, that's might be censoring for blank boy. That's fine. You don't need to. I'm not saying a sympathetic characterization is required. You should just be aware that the audience is going to hate your character. I'm not sure that's what's going on here. I think Neptune's kind of supposed to be, oh, Neptune, But no, I'm not sure anyone would have that reaction watching this episode. He is the general point. If you're wondering why I said why I was gendering the beginning statement, so I think a lot of times, specifically male content creators, think that they can characterize kind of males in any way, and if they have them being masculine, then people are gonna find them sympathetic, and that's not the case, especially for me, and also I think for kind of general audiences. I think this might be an example of that. Maybe not. I don't know. I have further things to get into later in this, I guess. So we have I don't know what happens this fight. It's just Neptune being afraid of water. We have the green one on Team Indigo making sand tornadoes and then just regular tornadoes, basically being an airbender. I think I have their RWBY wiki up here. That's how I know their names, because they definitely don't state the names in the episode. And yeah, that was pretty cool. There's a pirate ship out on the sea. I guess it was just a regular ship, and then we fight on there. Scarlet has a pretty cool gun or whatever, whatever the name for it is, and then we have Sun picking up coconuts. I think these are highlights that I wrote down. Neptune being dumb, that's on my notes, and then he shocks the water. while they're still in it. So it's talking about unsatisfying endings to fights. Wow, they're just going to stay in the water when one of them has an electric ability? Yeah, that's realistic. So that was a super unsatisfying ending to the fight. I didn't like it at all. It seemed like they were the worst team. I guess the point is that Sun and Neptune are good, which I can buy, I guess. Although Neptune was not being good the entire fight, I can buy Sun being a good fighter. You know what I call that victory? Shocking? No, well earned. What you said was stupid. Says you know, what's his face? Ports, yeah, Professor Port. So, so this fight is kind of a mess. And you're starting off kind of riskily by not having anyone available for the audience to sympathize with, and then you have this really dumb gimmick, and then you kind of just have an unsatisfying ending, and it's just a mess the entire time. So, what else do I want to talk about? Okay, so the highlights, I guess, are Scarlet was good. Brief thing on Scarlet, which is the continuation I mentioned previously. It seems last week Delaney and I talked about how in a recent Facebook Q&A, who answered this question? Miles answered that, are there any plans for LGBTQ plus characters to be introduced or revealed if they're already in the show? And he says, yeah, Monty was very adamant about one character in particular that you'll see soon here. So if he's talking about Scarlet, I am not very happy. So first of all, there's nothing wrong if Scarlet is queer. There's nothing wrong with him being so. There's a problem with him being the only queer characterization in RWBY because he is kind of stereotypically effeminate in this episode. And also there's two sides to this. First of all, they cut to a crowd shot and for cheering on Team Sun, and there's a guy holding up the fan photo for Scarlet and the three girls with him holding up fan photos for the others. So it's kind of implying that I think that he's gay, but that Scarlet is. And so there's two big problems here. One is a stereotypical characterization. Number two is that he's just the one queer person in the show, if that's true. So the show has a fan base that kind of like really like yearns for queer characterizations among the four main characters. I think it's probably not inaccurate to say that over half of fans in the show kind of ship some combination of the four female characters. And to shove the token gay into your audience that is craving queer representation is not good. I like to emphasize that this is a major problem if it is what is going on and will alienate many viewers of the show. So I really hope that this is not what's happening and that we're just going to have one character who's a stereotypical gay male and him being the one token gay on the show, and we're not going to have any other queer representation in a show that's full with females fawning over males and males fawning over females. No pun intended that there could possibly involving fawn. It's not in a show. It particularly is striking in a show where we have Blake blushing at Sun at the end of this episode, when previously she's kind of been neutral romantically interest-wise, and her just having a super girly towards the hot guy reaction to Sun, who when more previously their relationship had been much more nuancedly presented. Again, I keep using wrong phrases of words, but that's okay. So if this is a potential alienating thing for me as someone who wants to be super into the show, I'm not going to be if you're just gonna throw a token stereotypical gay character in when we're kind of craving broader representation and something that is not seems like the other thing is this is a super minor character. If this is it, like oh boy, okay, so let's hope it doesn't go there. Again, of course, it's an assumption for now. We'll see what the show does later, but I feel like I have enough evidence to be critical of it right now, and while still noting the caveat that it is not an established thing yet. Okay, so like I said at the end of the episode, we had Blake blushing at Sun, and this is the most obvious romantic interest Blake has stated. Like when Delaney and I were talking to you last week about who's going to be the queer character in the show, we thought, okay, what if it's one of the main four? Well, let's go off the list. Blake probably has expressed romantic interest in Sun, although it's not obvious. Also, you could argue that Blake has a past romantic history with Adam, which I think is that's how I read the situation, but it's who knows. Weiss obviously has expressed romantic interest in Neptune. Something I missed last week, which is pointed out to us in the comment section, thanks again, in our YouTube videos, was that Yang in the beginning of the series says, "Oh, look at all the guys here," and in the sleepover. So these are three characters now who've been established to be attracted to males. It seems like this does not preclude them from being queer. You know, bisexual people exist, pansexual people exist, stuff like that. But it is at least reasonable conclusion to make that they are straight, because at the very least they've shown interest in the opposite sex, as opposed to just assuming everyone's straight. Like it's fine. So, however, RWBY still, I don't think, has shown any romantic interest in anyone. My personal read on her, you could say maybe John, maybe other situations, but I think that that's not true. I think she just flat out hasn't. I think the most clear romantic interest from RWBY has been towards Weiss, and I think we see it here again at the end of the episode, although I am a biased viewpoint, so I don't know. When I say I'm a biased viewpoint, I'm a heavy White Rose shipper, so I don't know if I'm just having my shipping goggles on or if this is a real thing, but RWBY runs into Weiss again and kind of reacts how you might expect someone with a crush on the person you run into to react, in my opinion. The other way to interpret that scene is that RWBY's just being timid, and which is kind of who she is. So I think that both are reasonable takeaways from that. Probably my favorite part of the episode was there. No, it was the shipping talk before, but that's okay. And then Weiss staring up at the sky to see presumably Winter's plane. She's here. Okay, yeah. It's not, I guess it's not stated, but you know, this is what's happening. We know Winter Schnee is going to be a character, Weiss's older sister in the season, and her plane is coming down, I guess. So she is here, and I am excited to see Winter Schnee. Excited to see what they do with this character, how Weiss grows or reacts because of it, or is presented even, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm interested to see how Crow connects to Winter. That is an interesting one. Yeah. So what other talk here? Yeah. So there you go. I think that about covers everything I wanted to say about this episode. So yeah, not great. I hope this is the worst episode of the season. I'm hopeful that it will be. I am very hesitant about this potential representation that they have, like I said. That being said, I was very excited about this little White Rose scene, and I was very excited about this shipping talk that we had, which was, I think, very self-aware of the show, and looking forward to see what the show does in the future. I think hopefully if we get to 2-2 fights next week, or singles fights, that those will be easier to portray than these 4-on-4 fights that they're having, which might have always been a tough thing to do. So there you go. I'm Dylan Hysen, and you can check out everything about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. If you want to get, I really encourage you to give me feedback for this. I mean, most times I won't be going solo for our RWBY discussions, so that's not that big of a deal. I have been doing Star Wars Rebels podcast solo, though. So what do you think of me doing the solo? What do you think of my opinions on the show? What do you agree with me? I welcome that feedback, either whether it be on our YouTube page. If you're watching this on YouTube, just comment below, and then I'll respond to you probably within a few hours. And if you could, you can also write to me on Tumblr, Dylan OVA, or Twitter, Dylan_OVA, or the podcast Tumblrs or Twitters. So yeah, let me know what you thought. What do you think of this episode? I don't think I'm too off base from a fandom reaction towards this, at least from what I've seen. And yeah, and I'll be back. Oh, I forgot to mention the beginning of the podcast, but whatever. I think next week is just a World of Remnant. I don't think it's a new episode. I will try to confirm that at some point, but I'm fairly confident that I saw on Twitter that from Miles or Carrie that next week's will not be a new episode of RWBY. Again, not new next week, just a World of Remnant. Probably we will not be podcasting in any form on RWBY next week if it's just a World of Remnant, unless I kind of want to do a broader mythology talk if the World of Remnant is interesting, I guess. So there you go. Yeah, so I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks at the very least. Upcoming on the podcast Wednesday/Thursday, Star Wars Rebels and Moonbeam City, no Gravity Falls until the end of November, and Steven Universe has not yet been announced for a return. So thanks for listening, guys. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you next time. Bye.